Hello, I'm Deborah Sadler and I'm back with more paper sculptures. In April 2020 I had my first exhibition at Harrison Library. Thanks to COVID restrictions, that became a virtual exhibition. We had hoped that by January maybe I could have an in-person show, but alas, yet again, here I am in virtual form. I am, however, really grateful to Harrison Library for facilitating this show and for giving me an opportunity to show you what I've been up to in the last 8 months. I've called this exhibition Geese and Ghosts for reasons that will become obvious. So for a quick recap, I closed the first exhibition in April with these two pieces, still among my favourites, of a girl and her goose friend. The goose owns a bakery, and then when the girl is a little older, she works in a bookstore where the goose is her favourite customer. I decided to explore this friendship further. I know fairy tales give human traits to animals all the time, but I'm fascinated by a world where health and safety wouldn't shut down a bakery run by a goose. Also, geese are really fun little characters to sculpt, so of course I'm going to keep making them. I feel that the goose, being well read, and our heroine now being a bookshop owner, they would surely both enjoy an evening out together at the Natural History Museum. In this scene, he is explaining to her that while in some ways he may resemble a pterodactyl, or pterosaur to be correct, he and all birds are actually more closely related to theropods. It's always an educational evening with Goose. The pterosaur has been made with paper and I varnished it, and then you'll see I curved the backing paper up and over the top of the frame to make a ceiling, so I could suspend the pterosaur with a single strand of picture wire. Rainy Sunday afternoons are all about board games, snacking and chatting. The goose eats cake on his day off from the bakery. He's also a school crossing guard, as you can tell by the coat hanging on the peg, but on Sundays he can relax from his crazy schedule. I think here they're discussing his future travel plans. He's starting to feel the need to respond to his migratory instincts. I was playing with the proportions and dimensions of the frame here. In the previous show I used the same type of frame vertically. The horizontal gives some interesting composition challenges. In April, I shared a time-lapse video of how I make these sculptures. It's on YouTube and it's called 3-Minute Goose. And this goose is that completed figure. So of course I wanted to incorporate the 3-Minute Goose into an actual piece for my updated show. I decided to take this landed flying goose and place him in the arrivals section of some far-off airport. So he's left his underlings to run his bakery, and he's taken an extended trip to meet his long-lost cousins. I added the simple white floor and column with some thin white plastic to convey a sense of a slick modern airport. And while the goose is off on his travels, our girl is doing some research into her own family history, while enjoying some tea and cakes, of course. So here she is in her attic with folders and files and cine films. This was another experiment with finding different ways to utilise the space within the frame. In this instance, of course, the frame is really oriented to be flat, but I also like how it looks hanging on the wall too, where it offers a bird's eye view. In this scene, the goose visits his cousins at work and realises they share a passion for cakes and catering. The goose handles the money while his employee carries the cakes in a tray. Again, this is another piece where I am investigating space within the frame and changing the ground plane and perspective. In Cakes in the Park, I've placed the characters so they're standing at an oblique angle, again trying to push the perspective as far as I can while still telling a readable story that works while being hung on a wall. And of course, any culinary tour naturally involves a visit to the fish market. In researching this piece, I learned that while geese are primarily herbivores, they do on occasion eat fish when the opportunity arises, and I suppose a trip to the fish market is just such an opportunity. I painted the inside of this frame white to give it a frosty, clean appearance, and made ice from squares of white and grey paper covered with varnish. The flower shop is the last piece in the Goose and Girl series, and also the only piece that has neither the goose nor the girl in it. I think of the flower shop as being part of the same world as the bakery and the bookshop. In the story emerging in my mind, the florist may become our heroine's love interest. We'll see. Honestly, it's just so relaxing to make miniature flowers. I could make them all day, so there may be more flower shops, paper flower shops that is, in my future. Okay, so this odd couple don't really fit in as part of the Goose and Girl series or the Ghost series, but I wanted to include them because they make me laugh. I love the look of devotion in the chicken's face. And I suppose the chicken works as a bit of a convenient segue into the second half of the show, which I called Ghosts. I couldn't resist making my first ghostly apparition be a chicken. She and her ghostly young companion hang out in your backyard coop, and they may be the reason why your hens have been acting so spooked lately. This is another image where I'm playing with the ground plane and setting characters at angles, again to make them readable while hanging on a wall. Here's Ayalanthi, a voracious reader in life. She now peruses your book collection and occasionally borrows one or two, but she almost always returns them. The Edwardian bustle dress is really fun to make. So when I make paper dresses, I usually start off with a larger cone shape for the skirt and an inverted smaller cone shape for the top. Messing with the cone proportions and angles changes the style of the dress and the poise of the character. Victorian dresses flare out in all directions, but Edwardian ones are more about the bustle going out behind. I think Ayalanthi is a fairly friendly ghost. And speaking of friendly ghosts, in life Charlotte was an actress and a dancer who found her calling in music halls and in after-hours entertainment and hospitality industry. Her flirtatious spirit lives on in her attic bedroom of your apartment building. It was irresistible to make a showgirl with all those paper feathers and curvy paper shapes. Again, the velvet background works perfectly with the subject matter, and the green colour works well with the grey of our very friendly ghost. Distinctly less friendly is the ghost of murderous Aunt Matilde. We keep her in a box with a lid. I've been working on a couple of Lady Macbeth type characters, but found this Edwardian murderess to be much more terrifying. By simply tilting her upper body forward and having the subject look down, she already looks more menacing. It's extra fun to have her leering out of the box frame. The red background helps disguise at first the blood dripping from her hands. And finally, I couldn't close the exhibition with such an unsettling image, so instead I'll return to a more friendly character, Wilfred. Wilfred Wendlicott Smythe was the rowing club ghost. He was team captain and club chairman in his time, and he still lingers in the club bar on a summer's evening. It was fun to make a ghost with a prop. Obviously, Wilfred here has his oar, and it occurs to me that I could also make a cricket player and a tennis player perhaps, and we'll think of a few more Edwardian sports era ghosts to go in this series. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this tour of my exhibition. Of course, normally at this point we would say any questions, but as we can't do that, instead I'll direct you to my website, www.deborahsadler.com, and there's a contact form there if you have any questions. Also, if you're interested in buying any of my sculptures, you can find a selection of them at sachiart.com/Deborah Sadler. I update both pages regularly. Thank you so much for following me, and thank you also to Harrison Library. Stay well.